It's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the multidimensional MD. My mission is to help bring the intuitive aspects of health back to medicine in practical and tangible ways so that you can access deeper healing and experience more peace, love, and joy in your everyday life. So, just a quick announcement before we get started with today's episode. My new book, which is called I Am Intuitive, a multidimensional guide to embrace your inner light, will be releasing in just 7 days. So, 1 week from today, it will go live on Amazon and most book distributing platforms. So, that first week of book sales makes a huge difference. And I know that you are going to love this book. I made it to be very practical, to include all kinds of exercises that I go over with my patients. And so it takes experience that I have from my training, from my personal life, from my professional practice. And I've put as much as I can into this book. It has 4 different parts and 11 chapters. And there are so many exercises in it. So it's super practical. It's not just a narrative, but it is made to bring, just like my mission statement says, to bring these intuitive aspects of health back in practical and tangible ways. And I feel like I've done this with this book. So I can't wait for you to see a copy of it. So for today's episode, I wanted to talk about why people might over apologize. So maybe you're one of these people that finds yourself saying, I'm sorry a lot. Or maybe you know somebody that tends to say, I'm sorry over and over, even when it's not necessary for small things that we don't you typically expect an apology for. So anytime there's an imbalance, I like to look at it in order to understand ourselves better because it's that stuck place that's also where the healing is. It's not meant to focus on the negative. It's actually to bring it in, bring it back home to with embrace it with your love and your understanding. Understand why it's there in the first place. It's just that crying baby that just wants to be cradled and take care of it so that you can move through it, so you can grow and expand and move forward with your life. So today's episode is also part of my practice of normalizing these difficult conversations, or not necessarily difficult conversations, but conversations about difficult topics, and so that we can again process them, move forward, and grow. So the first part of this is we're going to go through over 6 reasons someone might over apologize. And these are all basically false beliefs in old programming. So we'll go through why they might be there. But first, let's see what reasons someone might apologize. So the first is this over arching desire that most people have is wanting to be liked. And I've done a whole other episode on that for why do we care what other people think? So I'll drop the episode link below as well. Uh, it's this fear of rejection or criticism, and it's a need to people please. So, or as my friend Maddie Fowler says, the disease to please. So we are social beings, and apologizing is often associated with politeness and respect. But when it's overdone, it places too much weight in another person's opinion. So there is a need to have some balance. Two, going along with this is perfectionism or a fear of failure, which can go along with that fear of criticism, a fear of rejection, a fear of doing something wrong. If someone doesn't feel like they are living up to their idea of perfect, and it may or may not be something that exists or something that's obtainable, it's because we're human, then they might have this tendency to apologize. But we don't need to apologize every time we realize we are human. And we're going to talk about in a moment when we do need to apologize, but it's not all the time. You don't need to apologize for being you, for existing in the world. So number 3, insecurity or lack of confidence. And so with that comes on this reliance of external validation, meaning you need someone else or something on the outside of you to confirm you, who you are, to have this clear self identity. So it's not coming from within. And part of the reason it can feel awkward is if the apology is unwarranted, then it can put the other person in this position of needing to reassure, "You're all good," or "You did a great job," "Don't worry about it." So it's seeking that reassurance or confirmation, but that's coming from another person, which is outside of yourself. Number 4, a false sense of guilt, which can stem from a lack of confidence and feeling like you're responsible for all the negative things around you. So maybe you're repeatedly saying to yourself, "It's all my fault." And so on a superficial level, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you can actually flip this around into a more quantum and manifestation level. So it's actually okay to feel that you're responsible. And I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing. Um, I don't look at things as good or bad because it can actually be empowering to feel like you're responsible. But it's about turning those words around into a more empowering statement of belief. So I am worthy. I am capable. I am enough. I choose kindness. I am love. And if you feel like that you are responsible for your life, instead of feeling guilty about it, you can feel that you can do something about it. So you can always change it around to like, well, I can actually take steps towards navigating my life in the direction that I'd like, instead of feeling the guilt of everything is my fault. Take the reins of that and be like, yeah, I can own it. I am responsible for me. I'm responsible for my actions, and I'm going to take steps towards a new direction. So you don't like the direction you're headed in, just turn it. I know, easier said than done, but reframing can help a lot. So number 5, coping mechanism to avoid conflict. So over apologizing can be this coping mechanism to avoid conflict, goes along with that people pleasing. So, and this is especially if you grew up in a house where small things escalated into big deals. So this could range from high expectations and disapproval for not living up to whatever the expectations were, to more severe traumatic situations like violence in the home. So, one way to survive these situations is through chronic apologizing. So, deflecting off of it and trying to smooth things out. And a coping mechanism, again, it's not bad. So, when I'm bringing up all these things, it's a way of understanding. It's not saying good or bad. A coping mechanism helps you get through. So, in a way, we do need to be thankful for whatever coping mechanisms have gotten into place. Now, if they're old and no longer serving us, then that's another thing. And this is part of that conversation to recognize old patterns and to be able to move from them. So we'll keep talking about that. Number 6, social anxiety. So feeling like there's a spotlight on you and that people are critical of your every move. So some people, personalities, constitutional variations can be at play here, especially when we're talking about introverts versus extroverts. The social anxiety can also stem from a more highly sensitive constitution, a more empathic constitution. These are the feelers moving through the world that can feel so many energies in the room or feel what other people are feeling. So, in these scenarios, just as in the others, it's important to understand yourself. The more you understand yourself, the easier it is to navigate all kinds of situations. Um, so next, then once maybe you've identified like one of those reasons or more than one. So to help us change or process old programming, then it helps to have some sort of reflection. If think about the stress response or the fight or flight response, over apologizing is a kind of social flight response, or what some people refer to as fawning. And it actually can and be either fight or flight, depending on how you look at it, because sometimes there can be some passive aggressive qualities to it. So it can have a fight or flight response, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But when you're looking at what where how that fight or flight response um, became first originated, then think about your past, think about your upbringing, think about your growing up. What is your first memory of someone disapproving of you? And were you encouraged to speak up and share your thoughts and opinions? So, what happened if you did? Growing up, did you feel you were accepted and valued as yourself? So, think about some of these things because then you can think about, like, where did this coping mechanism originate? And then as you identify it, then we have ways where we can smooth it over. But first it's actually acknowledging it, bringing it up to the light for yourself so you can embrace that part of you and just breathe it in. You could journal about it. You come in, have an osteopathic treatment. We could do some other mind body exercises, but even just naming it to tame it, so acknowledging it can be so rewarding because you understand yourself, you see where it's coming from, and then you can pause and decide what direction to go in. But it does take courage, it does take a moment to pause, reflect, look at where you are, and then also identify your triggers. So are there certain people or situations that you tend to over apologize with? Is it when you're overworked or overtired? Does it come about in areas of your life that you feel less confident in? When do you find yourself responding in this way? Because it might not happen in every area of your life. So maybe certain areas of your life make you feel more nervous than others, or you feel more stressed. And why is that? So is there a way that you could create more balance there? And so we'll continue to talk about that. But before we talk about how to flip some mi- mind looping around, then we do have to acknowledge, like, determine when a real apology is needed. So there's no need to undermine yourself. If you apologize too much, the apologies can actually start to lose sincerity and meaning. It also zaps your energy and can make others feel awkward. However, you do have to recognize when to apologize. So don't first, it's like, you don't apologize for being yourself. Um, and you you don't apologize for acting in alignment with your values, even if it upsets others. You're not responsible for other people's emotions. That doesn't mean being purposely unkind or passive aggressive, like giving someone the silent treatment. Um, and you don't apologize for something that's reasonably outside your control, like uh, not like there is a weather thing or an illness or an accident. And if it's within a range of normal human behavior, like, sorry I didn't get you water, or sorry the dishes are taking so long. So you don't apologize for those situations. um, when you do apologize for is for when your actions have gone against your values, when you've made a mistake, when you've failed to communicate clearly, and for ways to how to make an apology. Then we actually covered that in another episode with Edgar Casey's Creating Calm: Parenting with Mind, Body, Spirit, and I did this with Corinne Casey. So you can find that on other podcasting platforms, including Spotify or iTunes, and I'll drop that link below as well. So you have to determine, like, when you don't need to apologize and when you do need to apologize. And then next is reframing or changing the language. So changing the language from bringing yourself down to one of gratitude. So by focusing on gratitude, you're also acknowledging the other person's perspective as well as your appreciation of them. So it takes the focus off of you and actually, like, includes the other person. So by turning in towards thankfulness, you also allow yourself to take up space in the world, that you are worthwhile and worthy of love and presence. Self-deprecating beliefs would be, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve love and abundance. So you can flip that around to, I am worthy, I am good enough, I do deserve love and abundance, I am love and abundance. We can think about this in energetic terms as well. So if we think about over apologizing in terms of energy, there's actually this posturing of shrinking back energetically in a flight response. It's a protective mode. But in doing so, there's actually this tendency to make others posture in response with a fight response, which it casts them into this aggressor. So one is shrinking back, that's over apologizing. And then the other person casts them into like, um, going towards. So that's more of a fight response or aggressive response, which could be anything from frustration to mild annoyance. So in some cases, it can be a form of passive aggressive behavior because the act of over apologizing assumes that the other person is being aggressive or judgmental in some way, even if they haven't had any judgment yet, because it's not hasn't happened. So both sides of the relationship are affected. So again, just to review, so the over apologizing, it can be a shrinking back, but then that casts other person into going forward into that fight response. So you see that passive aggressive imbalance is created. There's a great relationship article that I read by this PhD psychologist, Asael Ramanelli, in Psychology Today, and he explains that when an apology is done in a balanced way, usually the person that's apologizing has usually the person apologizing has done a wrong. However, in over apologizing, the tables can be switched, and the person apologizing casts the other person into the aggressor, hence the passive aggressive dynamics. So it's just an interesting relational understanding of it. This isn't makes you meant to make you feel bad about being on either side. I've been on both sides, and it's interesting for me to take a closer look at because I love to understand our humanity and how we can all get along better. So I hope you take this as motivation to look at things from a different perspective, as well as we as learning and growing together. So if we go back to that energetic understanding with a position of gratitude, you allow your being to ground and center into your body, which encourages others to respond similarly. So it's two. We say we have two people, it's grounded and centered versus one leaning away and then casting other to lean towards. So the flight fight response. Instead, we have two balance, and that's a much better relationship dynamic. So, here's how you can reframe your need to apologize into gratitude. And if you would like a chart with all of these, I'm going to put one together, and I'll make it available on my new book website, which is allworldspress.com. And I'll put that link below too. So I'll have three links that I'll drop below in the comments for you. So and here are some ways you can reframe your need to apologize into gratitude. So instead of saying, I'm sorry to keep you waiting, say, thank you for your patience. You might find me saying that here in the office. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience. Instead of, I'm sorry to bother you, say, thank you for your time. Instead of, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, say, thank you for understanding. I have to reschedule. Instead of, I'm so sorry, I was just getting to that, say, thanks for the reminder. Instead of, I'm sorry, I'm no good at it, say, thanks for showing me how to do that. Instead of, I'm sorry you have to do this, say, thank you for taking care of this. Instead of, I'm sorry to impose, say, thank you for helping me out. Instead of, I'm sorry I can't make it, say, thank you for the invitation. Instead of, I'm sorry for asking, say, do you mind if I ask you a question? And then, thanks for explaining that to me, or thanks for clarifying. Instead of, sorry, can I have a, say, may I please have, or would it be possible for me to have? Instead of, sorry, I don't have your whatever coffee ready, say, I'll have that for you in just a moment. So you can say a mantra to yourself that I mentioned before. I am worthy. I am love. I am peace. I am safe. I belong and I am valuable. And those would all reinforce you being grounded and centered in yourself, allowing your heart to expand and create this beautiful nest of a biofield around you. And that's what your being gets to live in for this human lifetime. So, what do you do if someone over apologizes to you? This can be tricky because it requires patience. And you can pause and don't immediately react, whether getting upset or encouraging, trying to downplay it. Just take a moment to assess so that you can stay grounded and centered, and you don't fall into this wanting to be cast into the aggressor, or you want to be like neutral, loving, and grounded and present in your body. And then you could ask for clarity on what the apology is for. And it helps to be lighthearted if possible. So I mean, you could make a joke about it or say, forgiveness is granted for this egregious error or something like that, because just to make a play on like this is nothing that really needs an apology without getting upset. So it takes practice. That's why you need a pause, because of the energy dynamics, there will be this tendency to want to like feel annoyed and frustrated, especially if you feel like you're getting cast into this a person that's like picky, or that would cast judgment and require an apology. So pause, know yourself, and then asking both sides of you. So here's to being unapologetically you, embracing all aspects of you, even the parts that feel wounded, because all of you needs all of your light. And never apologize for stepping into your authenticity and sharing your love and kindness, because that is your truth. All the other stuff are false beliefs and old programming, but the truth of you is love and light. So step into that. I hope that this helps you in some way. If you have any questions on this topic, then drop a comment below. Like and subscribe, send it to anyone that you think it might be helpful for. And if you'd like to connect with me in other ways, you can on Instagram at All Worlds Health, on Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics, and you can sign up for my e-love letters. I send them out once a week, usually on Wednesdays. And you can do that at allworldshealth.com. And if you want a copy of the chart, then I'll be putting one up on the publishing website, or my new book website, and that's allworldspress.com. So don't forget, 1 week until book release date, and I look forward to celebrating that with all of you. So lots of love to all of you. I believe in you, and I hope that you believe in you too. Take care. Bye.